Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Quaid with Quaid and Rooney Distinctive Real Estate, and today I am here with Todd Gosden from Compass Mortgage. Todd is one of our preferred lenders, and we are going to be discussing wealth building.
Absolutely.
Is that what wealth building?
Wealth building and real estate.
And today, our first episode, because we are going to be doing this weekly, is going to be renting versus buying. So I am going to hand this over to Todd because I want to make sure that we start this ball rolling in the right direction.
Well, I think we both know we've both been around for a very long time and seeing the evolution of owning a home and how important it is to someone's economic condition, right? And I think that what a lot of people forget is that we've entered this state in our society right now where renting is kind of a cool thing. They're making it very interesting to not want to rent when they make it almost like a resort living sometimes, right?
Yeah, you're right. They are making it a resort.
They're making it very sticky for someone to want to buy a house. And I think that what we have to do is remind people is that sometimes by buying the perfect house that you want for where you're at and what stage of life is, it's going to be likely cheaper to buy the house if you have the savings, which we can talk about in a moment, than it is to actually rent. Right. We're seeing new places go up here in Glen Ellen that are $5,000 a month. There's places in Naperville and Wheaton that are $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month to rent. Now, that's great, but that's not wealth building, right?
Not at all. So he is not making this up. There are 3-bedroom units. I don't even know if in the city people are paying $5,000 for a 3-bedroom unit.
Yeah.
So that's extremely out of pocket, a lot of money.
That's a lot of money, and
in the toilet, actually.
Well, you're not seeing a return on your money. That's the idea of building wealth in real estate, is that by owning something, there's actually the opportunity of equity growth and also growth because you're actually paying down the debt that you owe, right? And so if you can look at somebody buying a $450,000 house here in the suburbs of Chicago, 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, whatever it's going to be, the reality is that until you run the numbers and understand that, hey, you're paying rent and the rent is going to nowhere other than someone else's pocket, and if you have the opportunity to buy, you're going to make money over 5 years significantly. Right. And I think the other thing that we forget is most people have the question of, how do I afford that? Meaning I financially can make the payment, but I don't have the savings to do it.
Right. That's the biggest thing. I think everybody would own if they could have that down payment.
I think
to
so.
get through that first gate.
I think so. And I think, we've heard lots of young people, your kids and my kids and other people say that, yes, we're making more money, but things cost more.
Right.
We specifically know that today because of inflation, the way it's running, is that going to the grocery store is no longer a fun event. Right? You're buying 2 bags of groceries and it's $200 for some reason now. So I do understand that. But I think the idea of it is talking to someone to find out financially what's possible. And what I mean by that is you can, in many cases, depending on certain things, whether it's FHA or conventional, put anywhere from 3.5% to 5% down. Okay. Right? I think that's something to be aware of. A lot of people think, believe it or not, surveys will show that they believe that they got to put 20% down to buy.
I think everyone thinks that because, and a lot of people listen to parents.
Right.
And they said, back when we bought one, well, you have PMI.
Right.
And then you don't want the PMI because you'll never get rid of it and you're paying this much extra. So touch on, I guess, that.
Well, yeah, and I think the idea of PMI is, and so.
And by the way, what does that stand for?
Yeah, private mortgage insurance, and all basically that is protecting the investor from you defaulting on the loan.
Right. That's
what it really comes down to, a simplest form. But the reality is that as values increase and you are paying down your mortgage, at some point that will disappear. And obviously, if mortgage rates come down and you're able to refinance, you also can make that disappear, right? There are people over the last 4 or 5 years where 6, 8, 9 months into their house, they were able to get rid of the mortgage insurance.
And the way you get rid of mortgage insurance is what?
Either through growth of equity, and also...
And how much do you need to have?
You have to have a 20% equity position in your home. Good question. So having said that, is that there's always a way to get around it. There's always a way to have a conversation around it too. There are opportunities where you can defer from paying mortgage insurance to doing other things. So there's lots of creativity that can go into this. The reality is every person is so uniquely different. No one is the same. Okay. And I think the other thing we have to take into account too is we're seeing a lot more of the younger generation that are getting gifts of equity from parents. They're getting gifts for marriages that are significant enough for that. There's lots of families, we've had 2 of them recently, where their parents were co-signing as non-occupying co-borrowers. Okay. So I think that to not look would be dangerous, right? Because
investigate the different ways.
Investigate it, because no one says you have to dive into it. I think the key, as we always say here, is we want to empower and educate. We want to give you the right information to make the right decision. And I think that a lot of people make assumptions based on what they read and what they hear, and that's not always the most accurate.
Right. And also, it could be just a lot of people are not sure, will I be here?
Right.
Why would I buy? I'm not sure if I'm going to be transferred. I'm not sure if I'm staying at this job. And so my answer to that always, from the realtor's point of view, is make sure you buy something that allows you to be a landlord.
That's right.
And a lot of my son's friends, my son just said to me last night, my friends don't want to be, some of them don't want to be a landlord. Well, then hire a management company. You don't have to necessarily be a landlord, but you could own real estate.
Right.
I mean, if you need to go to another state, and in that state you go, okay, I'm going to rent because I'm not sure how long I'll be here. You have either some place to come back to. That's right. That you've been continuing equity building.
That's right.
So I'm a big fan of, you guys, just buy something that you own.
Well, an example is we have a home in Florida, okay, that we use seasonally. Well, I have somebody managing it. I do nothing. They just do it all for me and tell me what's going on. That is a possibility. But we rent it out from time to time if we know we're not going to be there, to create equity. And all that equity does that we get from the renter is pay our mortgage for us. Somebody else is paying for my home.
Right.
There's no downside to that. That is a part of building wealth in real estate, is understanding that the possibility of that existence is really important to take into account when you are looking for a house, even if it means that you're going to be here for 3, 4, or 5 years.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and I think that's what you're starting to see more and more of in our country right now. People are realizing that wealth through real estate is a tremendous opportunity to generate income for yourself, both long-term and short-term.
Right. Now, what do you say to people who go, oh, real estate, that is just not where you're going to make money anymore?
Well, I mean, all we have to do is look at the historical numbers of that and say that, as they say, there's nothing more valuable than buying dirt.
Right.
Right. And if you look at the data that would show what it would look like, now, obviously, when you look at the market has trended up and up and up forever and ever and ever. And it always will. That's why they say put money into it and forget it, because you're going to make money. It's no different in real estate.
Right.
Put your money into it, forget it.
And for I think a lot of people go, well, wait, what if I want to buy it and 2 years later I'm going to sell it? I won't make that. Well, yeah, you're not. You need to own real estate for a period of time.
You do. Well, and I think that's the thing to remember. I mean, even people, when we had the Great Recession back in 2007 and 8, where so many people lost equity in their homes in tremendous amounts, more than we've ever seen in history. Some areas of the Chicago realm here in Illinois have been 40% down. But if you look 10 years in advance of that, through that, those people had gained over 10 years all the way to 40% back to another 7 or 8% return.
Right.
So the factor is the market, whatever it's doing, will correct itself and it'll always go back to finding a normal place.
Right. And you can't predict the future. So, you do it knowing that historically, what is it, 7% or something
What's
like
that?
that? Historically, that's what real estate makes over time. But of course, you're going to lose money sometimes. I mean, sometimes it just, if you have to move, you have to move, right?
Well, and I think that's where a really strong professional in the industry, you and your team have been around for a very, very long time. You know the communities, you understand the value of going, yes, that may not be the right house for you, but this one is. Here are the reasons why. Because your job is to help them not make that mistake.
Right. And I was just with a client last weekend. I had the good fortune of working with a buyer. I don't do that often. I'm on the listing side. But with this particular buyer, they loved the house. It was cute. I love it. And then I had to be the one that says, okay, but here are the negatives.
Right.
And for me, getting called back saying, we need to move now. Can you sell this? And I go, okay, well, here's the negatives. So you do want to say, does our love for the house, is it higher than the negatives is what you really have to look at. Because if you're planning on staying for a long period of time, those negatives won't matter because it'll just increase no matter what.
Well, and I think that's the value of a professional like you is that you're taking an emotional experiencing and adding logic to it
Right.
to make sure that it's going to be a quality investment.
Right.
And I think that's what's important in real estate is having a partner that will help you get to that point for sure.
So now we're gonna slide into, because I think Todd comes with a wealth of knowledge in his head. I don't know, he doesn't have any papers, but I think he knows it all. So with the house, we had played with a number of 450. The reason we came up with that is just simply because we said 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Just let's make it a $450,000 house. What was the payment with? And we were doing, that all is based on, are you in a subdivision with HOAs? What are the taxes in that particular
That's right.
neighborhood? There's a lot of different things. And we were talking about, I'm not sure everyone knows what PITI is. Principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. That all rolls into what your payment will be.
Right. And I think that people need to remember is it's very easy to create a calculation, right? So you can say a $450,000 house putting down 5 or 10%. Is that a good or a bad opportunity? Well, there's a lot of, you just named everything that went into effect. Well, what are the taxes?
Right.
How much is the insurance? Where's it at? All those things.
Right.
I think you have to remember is that if you measure something like say $450,000 putting down 5% or 10% versus you paying $3,000 to $3,500 in rent, okay, you're going to be able to find a house for that number and be at or lower than where you at currently are paying rent.
Right.
Right. So I think that's the thing that we have to focus on here is that a lot of people just don't run the numbers to know and understand that, wait a second, I can actually buy that for that and I'm paying this. So
I don't think they stop and think about it,
no,
actually.
you don't. It's not something that's right there in the front of your mind. You're just
Right.
thinking, oh, that's way out of my price range. Well, not necessarily.
Right.
I mean, if you run the numbers and see, I mean, we can call out a payment to anything, but a payment on this block may be different than this block just because they may have an HOA over there and there's nothing over here.
Right.
The reality is affordability is not where everyone thinks it is, meaning they talk about the affordability crisis. Yes, there's an affordability issue. Is it in housing? Maybe not so much in housing, but it could be in the entire economic condition.
Right.
Because things cost more today, right? But think about it this way. Affordability is calculated as an index for the National Association of Realtors based on somebody putting down a 20% payment, 20% down payment, and a 25% debt to income. A 25% debt to income means if you take in principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, okay, and other variables that would have to happen with that house, that is very rare air. Meaning, to give you an idea that somebody has a debt to income ratio of 25% is not normal.
That's low, isn't it?
It's way low.
Yeah, it's way low. I thought that, in fact, didn't it used to be, don't go over 30%, but now it's higher now,
So
right?
National Association of Realtors creates their index based on this
Okay.
20-25 method. And there's nothing wrong with it because they can't possibly put every single little
Right.
thing in there that's going to make the index work. It's improbable.
Right.
But when you start looking at it and you see like what Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac do, who own a proportion of the loans in the country, of saying we want your debt to income to be 28 over 36, that simply means that your principal and interest, tax, and insurance payment do not exceed 28% of your income,
Okay.
right? And then the 36 is going to be everything all together. All your debt, your credit cards, your cars, whatever it is,
all of it.
all in
Okay.
together. So even those numbers are even not what we historically see.
Right.
Because people are not, listen, if every candidate to buy a house was that way, boy, it would be awesome.
Right.
But that's not reality.
Right.
Everybody has a circumstance that's different, but everybody does want to own a house. They really do. And that's why we have the agenda of saying, let's offer an opportunity for everybody to own a house. Well, that's not right. Everybody deserves to buy a house.
Well, right.
Right. So we have to be careful of that. But the reality is, if you're living in a community or making an income, you should actually at least ask the question.
Right.
What is wrong without asking? Because what you don't know is what you don't know.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
And I think that's the story to tell here today is that if you have an opportunity to build wealth in real estate, I think that's a tremendous opportunity, especially for a young person.
Oh, for sure.
You know-
Starting right now in your 20s,
You know, it's-
owning something.
absolutely. My son has this goal is he wants to own 10 by 40.
And there you go. I know a lot of younger people. I guess and it doesn't always have to be younger, but are wanting to buy a property a year.
That's right. Well, and here's the thing is if you sit down with you and say,
Mhm.
how does that work?
Mhm.
You could very quickly find out that, hey, well, this equity from this can help me buy that, or
Right.
hey, I have somebody paying this rent, so I can actually buy this
Pull the
one.
equity out and buy the next one.
There's so many
Yeah.
different ways to mathematically do it. That's why they need a professional to be there helping them come across to figure out how
Right.
to do this.
And that's why we are starting this series. So we will start doing, the next thing would be, oh, how would I buy one? And then once I own one, how could I take that out and buy another one?
Yeah.
And
Leveraging your property for
Right.
more property.
right.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. So next week, I think we should talk about what it means to be buying investment properties and buying dirt.
okay. So next week we're gonna be doing that.
Excellent. Let's do it.
All right. Everybody have a great week and we'll see ya.